Some cities grow slowly. They test ideas, fail quietly, fix mistakes, then expand again. Others don't get that luxury. They're thrown into success before they understand what success requires. Money arrives first, attention follows, and intelligence is expected to catch up later. But cities don't learn the way people do. When wealth comes too early, it teaches urgency. It rewards speed, not reflection, and once that mindset settles into a city's DNA, it shapes everything, from how roads are built, to how power is distributed, to how people relate to each other. This is the story of cities that got rich before they got smart. And few examples capture this better than Lagos. Lagos was never meant to be what it became. What began as a port city gradually transformed into an economic gravitational force for West Africa. But the transformation didn't happen in measured steps. It happened in surges. Waves of people, money, and ambition arrived faster than institutions could adapt. And once that process began, it never slowed down. The oil boom of the 1970s changed everything. Revenue flooded the national economy, and Lagos became the central channel through which opportunity flowed. Jobs, contracts, trade, migration, Lagos promised access. And when a city promises access in a developing economy, people come whether the city is ready or not. Population growth exploded. Informal settlements expanded faster than urban plans. Roads designed for thousands now served millions. Housing demand overwhelmed supply almost instantly, but the real issue wasn't population, it was sequencing. Lagos received scale before structure, and when scale comes first, disorder doesn't feel like a failure, it feels like a side effect of success. One of the most misunderstood things about Lagos is its resilience. People often admire how Lagos works despite the chaos, but that framing hides a deeper problem. Lagos didn't eliminate chaos, it adapted to it. That matters because adaptation without correction eventually becomes dependence. Entire industries formed around dysfunction. Generator sellers thrived because power was unreliable. Water vendors existed because infrastructure was absent. Traffic created an economy of delay. This trained the city to normalize workarounds instead of demanding systems, and survival thinking reshapes behavior. When citizens operate in constant adaptation mode, long-term civic thinking disappears. You don't invest emotional energy in systems you don't trust to last. You focus on personal leverage, personal networks, and personal escape routes. This is how cities lose collective intelligence. Lagos didn't lack smart people, it lacked systemic learning. Mistakes repeated because the city never slowed down long enough to analyze them. Every solution was temporary, every fix was reactive, and every year the stakes got higher. Rapid wealth doesn't just change infrastructure, it changes values. In Lagos, land became wealth before it became responsibility. Construction raced ahead of regulation. Buildings rose where drainage systems didn't exist. Wetlands were reclaimed without long-term environmental planning. Flooding became seasonal, not because rainfall increased, but because foresight didn't. And here's the psychological trap. As long as money keeps circulating, these problems don't feel existential. They feel inconvenient. Traffic becomes part of Lagos. Flooding becomes the rainy season, and power outages become normal. When dysfunction is renamed as identity, reform becomes almost impossible. Another consequence was inequality compression. Extreme wealth and extreme scarcity coexisted in the same visual frame. This created a permanent state of tension. In such environments, people don't think like citizens, they think like competitors, and competition crowds out cooperation. The city became hyper-individualistic, not by culture, but by necessity. When systems fail, people rely on personal strength. Over time, that erodes trust in collective solutions. Lagos didn't choose chaos, it inherited it from speed. However, cities need moments where growth slows enough for evaluation to catch up. Lagos never had that pause. Every time the city approached a breaking point, another economic opportunity appeared. Trade expanded, real estate boomed, tech hubs emerged, and money kept arriving just fast enough to postpone reckoning. This created a dangerous illusion that growth itself was the solution. But growth without intelligence doesn't stabilize systems, it stresses them. Today, Lagos is still trying to retrofit wisdom into a city already running at maximum velocity. Roads are expanded after congestion becomes unbearable. Housing policies are debated after informal settlements have already solidified. Environmental concerns are raised after damage is visible. This is the price of getting rich first. Now contrast that with a city that looked like it was doing everything right. Dubai's rise feels cleaner, more intentional, and more controlled, but early Dubai was also a wealth-first city. In the 90s and early 2000s, Dubai executed one of the fastest economic transformations in modern history. Oil provided initial capital, but the real acceleration came from diversification, trade, tourism, aviation, and real estate. Dubai branded itself into relevance, and that branding worked. Capital flooded in, talent followed, and skyscrapers became symbols of ambition. Entire districts appeared almost overnight. From the outside, it looked like a masterclass in planning, but something familiar was happening. Growth was outrunning reflection. Early Dubai operated with a simple psychological framework. Expansion solves problems. Need jobs? Build more. Need revenue? Attract more tourists. Need global relevance? Build bigger landmarks. This mindset produced incredible results quickly. Labor systems were built for efficiency, not sustainability. Environmental limits were acknowledged but postponed. Water scarcity was managed through technology, not long-term ecological planning. Urban heat increased faster than adaptive design, and because the city was young, wealthy, and admired, these issues didn't feel urgent. This is momentum bias. When everything is working, weaknesses feel theoretical. Growth becomes addictive, and slowing down feels like failure. Dubai's early success created confidence, but also dependency. Unlike Lagos, Dubai relied heavily on external inputs. Labor was imported, food was imported, expertise was imported, and even cultural rhythm was partially imported. This allowed for rapid execution, but it created structural fragility. The city functioned like a perfectly tuned machine, as long as the inputs never stopped. Wealth masked this vulnerability. As long as money flowed, the system held, but resilience wasn't embedded, it was purchased. This shaped governance. Moreover, Dubai built physical systems faster than social ones. Roads appeared before civic culture matured. Towers rose before labor frameworks stabilized. Public spaces expanded before social cohesion was fully understood. This is a sequencing issue. Cities need institutional depth to absorb shocks. Early Dubai didn't have that. It was still becoming itself while the world was already watching. The difference between Dubai and Lagos was control. Dubai had centralized authority. That allowed it to course correct later, but the early imbalance still left traces. Environmental stress, economic sensitivity to global cycles, and dependence on external labor markets, these were outcomes of speed. Meanwhile, Lagos and early Dubai look nothing alike. One is chaotic and organic, the other is controlled and curated, but their early mistake was identical. They assumed intelligence would follow wealth automatically, but it doesn't. When money arrives before wisdom, cities teach urgency over patience, extraction over stewardship, expansion over reflection. Fixing that later is exponentially harder, and this pattern doesn't end here, because when we look at cities built on different kinds of wealth, we see the same sequencing problem appear in new forms. However, there's a comforting story people like to tell themselves about progress. The story says that once intelligence enters the equation, mistakes disappear. That smart people make smart cities, that innovation naturally leads to sustainability. Those places built on knowledge or creativity will automatically avoid the traps that destroy boom towns. But cities don't fail because they're stupid. They fail because incentives distort judgment. San Jose and Las Vegas sit on opposite sides of the cultural spectrum, yet they expose the same flaw in human thinking. One trusted intelligence too much, the other trusted attraction too blindly. Both believed their advantage would protect them from long-term consequences. It didn't. San Jose exists at the center of the most technologically powerful region on Earth. Silicon Valley reshaped global communication, finance, medicine, transportation, and entertainment. The tools built there changed how billions of people live, yet San Jose itself struggled to function as a city. This was because intelligence was applied narrowly. From the beginning, San Jose's economic value came from ideas, not place. Wealth was created in offices, labs, and later laptops. Physical space was secondary. The city wasn't designed to be experienced, it was designed to be accessed. People came to work, not to belong. That single character shaped everything. Unlike older cities built around markets, ports, or civic centers, San Jose grew around employment nodes. Corporate campuses replaced town squares, suburbs replaced dense neighborhoods, roads replaced walkways. The assumption was simple: productivity mattered more than proximity, and for a while that worked. High salaries masked inconvenience. Long commutes felt acceptable because compensation was strong. Housing shortages were tolerated because career growth was rapid. Traffic congestion was framed as a temporary inconvenience rather than a systemic failure. This is what wealth does to perception. It numbs urgency. As long as individuals can personally compensate for collective shortcomings, pressure for reform remains low. One of the quiet failures of San Jose was cultural. The people who lived there were some of the most capable problem solvers in the world, but they didn't think like city builders. They thought like specialists. Engineers optimized systems they controlled. Founders scaled products they owned. Investors maximized returns they could measure. But cities require a different mindset. They require coordination without ownership, long-term planning without immediate payoff, trade-offs that don't benefit any single actor quickly. San Jose lacked that integrative intelligence. Housing policy lagged because no single company owned the problem. Transit stalled because benefits were distributed while costs were concentrated. Urban cohesion weakened because work consumed identity. The city became economically brilliant and civically hollow. As the tech economy surged, San Jose's population changed rapidly. Housing demand exploded. Prices climbed beyond the reach of teachers, service workers, and public servants. Entire classes of essential workers were pushed further out, increasing congestion and fragmentation. This was the predictable outcome of growth without urban foresight. But here's the psychological twist. Because innovation continued, these outcomes were framed as unfortunate side effects rather than failures. Displacement was normalized, inequality was rationalized, efficiency was prioritized over equity. San Jose became a city that functioned for those who could afford to bypass its weaknesses. Another critical error was the belief that technological progress would naturally translate into urban improvement, that smarter tools would eventually fix everything, but tools don't choose priorities, people do. San Jose invested heavily in digital futures while neglecting physical ones. Remote collaboration thrived while public transit stagnated. Data-driven innovation soared while basic housing supply lagged. The city mistook motion for direction, and by the time the costs became undeniable, patterns were already entrenched. Density was politically difficult. Infrastructure upgrades were expensive. Trust between stakeholders was thin. The final irony is this. The city that taught the world to pivot struggled to pivot itself because wealth arrived early, pressure arrived late. San Jose demonstrates that intelligence alone does not produce wisdom. Wisdom requires context, restraint, and humility. It requires acknowledging that cities are not products and people are not users. Now shift your attention to a city that never pretended to be smart. Vegas didn't grow accidentally. It grew intentionally, but for a very specific purpose. It was built to stimulate. Every element of Las Vegas is psychological. The lights, the scale, the spectacle, the constant novelty. The city is designed to suspend consequence, to compress time, and to encourage spending by weakening restraint. This was the business model, and it worked spectacularly. Las Vegas measured success in arrivals, not stability. Occupancy, revenue, and expansion mattered more than cohesion. The city is optimized for peak moments, not steady lives. This shaped infrastructure decisions. Massive hotels rose faster than neighborhoods. Entertainment corridors expanded while public services lagged. Housing for workers became secondary to experiences for visitors. The city assumed momentum would last forever. This is a city that requires constant attention. If people stop coming, the system stutters. That dependency makes long-term planning psychologically difficult. Why plan for restraint when excess pays? Water consumption soared despite desert limits. Energy demand climbed. Urban sprawl spread into fragile landscapes. Each expansion assumed future growth would cover future costs. This is the logic of addiction, applied to urban design. For years, wealth concealed fragility. As long as tourism thrived, the city appeared unstoppable, but every shock exposed the truth. Economic downturns hit harder, travel disruptions rippled instantly, employment volatility surged. Workers bore the brunt of instability while capital recovered faster. Las Vegas has built an economy optimized for excitement, but endurance is what cities need most. Another long-term consequence was cultural thinness. Las Vegas struggled to develop a strong civic identity because its primary audience was temporary. People came to escape, not to invest emotionally. That affected everything from community engagement to political will. When cities don't cultivate belonging, they struggle to mobilize collective action. Reform becomes harder. Sacrifice becomes unpopular. Las Vegas taught people to consume the city, not care for it. At this point, San Jose and Las Vegas appear to be opposites. One is powered by intellect, while the other by indulgence. One exports technology and the other exports experience. But structurally, they fail in the same way. They allowed wealth to dictate priorities before wisdom set boundaries. San Jose trusted intelligence to self-correct. Las Vegas trusted the attraction to self-sustain. Both underestimated time. Meanwhile, cities that grow slowly learn from mistakes while they're still small. Cities that grow fast lock mistakes into concrete. Cities that grow slowly learn from mistakes while they're still small. Cities that grow fast lock mistakes into concrete. San Jose is locked in sprawl and exclusion. Las Vegas locked in dependency and fragility, and neither collapsed. Overall, human psychology is the common denominator. When success comes early, caution feels unnecessary. When rewards are immediate, consequences feel distant. When growth is praised, restraint feels like weakness. Cities are reflections of that psychology. They don't fail suddenly, they drift, defer, and rationalize until the cost of delay becomes unavoidable. In the end, Lagos shows what happens when adaptation replaces systems. Dubai shows what happens when acceleration replaces reflection. San Jose shows what happens when intelligence replaces integration. And Las Vegas shows what happens when attraction replaces resilience. Different paths with the same destination. The cities that survive long term are not the richest, the smartest, or the most exciting. They're the ones that learn before they scale, that pause before expansion, that build wisdom alongside wealth. Because once a city gets rich before it gets smart, the hardest work is no longer building forward, it's undoing what success rushed through. So do you think some cities are truly resilient by design, or are many of them just surviving on momentum? Let me know what you think in the comments, and if this video helped you see how wealth, speed, and psychology shape the rise and strain of modern cities, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the forces that quietly define the world we live in.